What's up, guys? I haven't made a video in a while. I've just been kind of busy with, school, work, coaching, and, just busy with other odd end things. I haven't been able to time to really make a video. But I thought I'd talk about the whole Kristen Cinema thing that happened a couple days ago, about probably maybe a week from now, or a week ago today. For those of you who don't know, the COVID bill, the $1.9 trillion COVID stimulus bill passed, but there was a clause in it for $15 minimum wage, but it was shot down by eight Democrats and all of the GOP representatives, congressmen. One of the Democrats really got some publicity, but not in a good way, was Kristen Sinema, a Democrat from Arizona. What had happened was she had obviously declined to have and voted against the $15 minimum wage raise in the COVID stimulus package. But what got her, publicly more attention, negative attention, was she, before choosing to vote for the $15 minimum wage, she looked back to Mitch McConnell. For anyone who knows Mitch McConnell, a lot of people argue he is one of the most corrupt politicians in U.S. history, and that is a valid argument. He is more than likely top 5, if not top 3, in my personal humble opinion. But she looked back at him, smiled at him and acknowledged him with a head nod, as much as we could see with her wearing a mask. And she did an action where she went like this and smiling when voting no on minimum wage. For those who don't know, politicians, especially Congress people on motorcycle, hell loud. People in Congress make about $83 a year, $83 an hour, and they make well over $150,000 a year. With that being said, these are the people deciding that you don't need to make $15 an hour. These are the people that decide that they make more in an hour than you make in a day. They're the ones telling you you don't get to have $2 extra more if you live in California, or you don't get to have a livable wage. Now, credit, $15 isn't what Americans deserve, because if you look at the productivity level versus, the labor power and labor worker productivity versus labor wage and workers' wage, the productivity, so if it starts here, productivity is here, has risen, and wages have kind of stagnated. And that's what's kind of making life more and harder to live, because your standards of living are lower and you're being paid less, even though you're producing more. But that's a whole other story about labor power and human capital. But to get back to my point, these are the people, these politicians are telling you, the working class American, working class individual, that you don't deserve that money. You do not deserve that money. You're not getting it. They say we can't afford it. We shouldn't make businesses pay for it. The way you stop for the first part, the way you stop for businesses, if a business can't afford it, you subsidize that business. If they can prove to you that they cannot afford to pay their workers $15 an hour, the U.S. government can subsidize it. Now they'll say, "Oh, how can you pay? We can't afford to make $15 minimum wage. We can't afford to subsidize all these people." Well, yes, you can. You can. It would cost less than the 2019 military budget increase, not the budget itself, but the increase in the budget. The increase, they added $80 billion more a year because of that budget increase in 2019 when Trump was still in office. It would cost less than the increase, and they would still have money left over for the budget to increase to the military budget. It would cost less than that to raise minimum wage and subsidize businesses that can't afford to keep on $15 minimum wages for workers. And people are telling you, "Oh, well, businesses can't afford it." Yes, they can. You get subsidized. You can have they start a program where you can get small business loans and small business subsidies to help them pay for these workers. Once they can prove they can make a gross profit as well as pay for these workers, then they won't be able to qualify for the subsidies. But then they shot it down. There's a way you can pay for it. Just mentioned it, and they shot it down, telling you we can't afford it. You're telling us, you're telling the working class American people, not only giving them a big F you, a big fuck you, you're telling them that they can't afford, the American people, the taxpayers can't afford $15 an hour, but we can afford endless wars in the Middle East, in Africa, in in the Southeast Asia. We can afford to spend trillions of dollars a year on neo-imperialism and neo-colonialism. We can spend trillions of dollars bailing out large corporations. We can afford that. Nobody ever asks how we can afford that. Nobody can ever ask that. And even the Democrats that vote not to do these things, at least half of them, at least half of the politicians that vote no to increase military budget, half of them are just virtue signaling. So they decide whether or not they'll vote last, right? They'll figure out whether or not people are going to support it, and if it has that support, they'll just vote no, just to be like, oh, well, I voted no. I couldn't do anything. It was going to pass anyways. They never ask how we're going to pay for it when it's something involving the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, the for-profit health insurance, the for-profit education system. They never ask how it's going to cost then. But when it affects the American people in a positive way, they ask, how are we going to afford this? They don't give a fuck about us. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about me. They don't give a flying fuck. And maybe I'm too hard on people like, on Andrew Yang, on people like the Squad with AOC, Aeon Presley, Cory Bush, Ilhan Omar. Maybe I'm too hard on Bernie. I've been a little critical of Bernie and AOC lately because they have not had a fucking spine and stood up to fucking Biden and the establishment. Now, I don't think it's them, being disingenuous and bowing down the corporations and the establishment. I don't think it's that. I don't really know. I would hope not. What I think it is I think they're trying to have some strategy to go along, to get along, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It's more them scratching the establishment's back, and then the establishment's around and sticking their finger up their ass. Like, oh, fuck you. I think their strategy is they're one of the worst strategies you can to try and better the American people's lives. I think Bernie, he's probably one of the most genuine politicians we have, but I think his political career has been wasted. He could have done so much more if Bernie just put the pressure. He had a large 30 to 40% voting block in the 2020 election. He had it, and he was just like, Biden, you can have it. Fuck it. I mean, let me just be Labor Secretary Biden. And he put no pressure on Biden. He told Biden, hey, I'm telling my voters not to vote for you if you don't pass 10 executive orders, even fucking 5. Not a single fucking request from fucking Biden. Not a single fucking one. I love Bernie, man. I think Bernie is one of the most important modern not political activists, but politicians. And he's the closest thing we've had to FDR. Since FDR. It's just, it's frustrating. Because you see a lot of people say, oh, well, if it weren't for the Republicans, yada, yada, yada. But the Democrats have the House and the Senate. There's no excuse not to pass shit. And we choose not to. And people say, oh, the Senate parliamentarian will say, we can't raise $15 minimum wage. Well, you know what Republicans did when they wanted to do the Bush tax cuts back in the 2000s? They fired the parliamentarian. Fired him. And when they said they couldn't do it, and hired someone that said, oh, yeah, you can do it. Why don't the fucking Democrats use their fucking leverage? They're so fucking brain dead. It's moments like these, the whole Kristen Sinema thing. It's people saying, "Oh well," people criticizing Kristen Sinema. That's sexist. She just voted to. If we would have raised $15 minimum wage, over 1 million Americans would have been directly lifted out of poverty the second that got fucking initiated after their first fucking paycheck. Millions of children would have been lifted out of fucking poverty, and they want to tell you that, oh, we can't afford it, but we can afford trillions of dollars overseas. And trillions of dollars of subsidizing large corporations that fucking fail. These corporations fucking fail. The fucking Obama Wall Street bailout. These companies directly fucked the economy with the housing bubble, the housing crisis bubble, and toxic assets. They failed. If you really believed in fucking market capitalism, like the way Republicans do and a lot of neoliberals do, you would allow these businesses to fail because that's what free marketism is. The market decides who fails and who doesn't. If you have a shitty fucking business, you run a business shitty, you fucking fail and move on. That's it. You get no subsidy. That's free market capitalism. But the GOP and the Democrats don't fucking believe that. They don't believe that shit. Not at all. Not for 1 second. It's rugged capitalism, individualism for the poor, the working class, and it's cushiony, multi-trillion-dollar state socialism, corporatism for the very wealthy. All these fucking politicians play you, man. Don't let them fucking play you. They're taking you for a fucking joke. If you believe anything, any single fucking thing that the GOP or the Democratic Party tell you, they're playing you like a fucking fool. Because they don't give a shit about you. And credit, maybe they do. Maybe they got into politics because they genuinely cared. And they wanted to help people. But the amount of money that is in politics, thanks to people like Newt Gingrich and Mitch McConnell, who completely rewrote the script on spending in politics and created super PACs, but that's a whole nother video that I might do later on. If it weren't for those two individuals, not in particular, but they're some of the main actors when it came to rewriting the, interpreting the Constitution as what is free speech and money in politics. If it weren't for those two, we might have a lot more left-wing, social reform and social policies that actually help the American people. But America is a failed state. It's a failed empire. And it's obvious that it already is now. All the money's going towards militarism and none to the people. So, I just need to get that off my chest because I see a lot of shit about Christian cinema. And it seems like 80% of it is just about them criticizing that she's a woman. You don't see Republicans criticizing Christian cinema. Because, they believe that was good. But they don't want to tell their base that. They don't want to tell their base that. Because they like to do the fake populism shit. In the same way that Joe Biden does. In the same way Democrats do. They do, placation. And they like to, give fucking lip service. So, just thought I'd get that off my chest. And I'll try to make more videos. Been a little behind lately. But I'll try to make more videos. Catch you guys later.